All right. So now it says, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. How are bombs bursting in air going to prove that our flag was still there? Okay, you got to remember it's nighttime. That particular night it was raining. Okay, so how are the bombs going to prove that our flag was there? If Francis Scott Key is looking out of the boat and trying to see if that flag was there. Okay, there's two different things. First of all, could have lit up the sky like fireworks, but it was very dark and very rainy and they were far away, so probably it's the second thing. If the British people have already captured all the Americans, do you think they'd still be shooting at them? Probably not. So they would have their flag up in our fort and they wouldn't be shooting at the fort anymore. So by the bombs bursting in air, it proved that they were still fighting us and our flag must have still been there. Okay, so that's the two different ways, and if you write down both on your test, you can get a bonus point. Now the next part says, "Oh say, does that Star Spangled Banner," which we learned the banner is our flag. So, "Oh say, does our flag wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave." So we're free because we can do lots of stuff in this country that lots of other people in other countries can't do. We have freedom of religion. We can worship however we want. If you're over in another country and you want to worship a certain way, you can either be sent to jail or killed for it. So we're really, really lucky that we get to be in this country for just the freedom of religion. We can wear whatever clothes we want. We don't have to wrap ourselves. We have the freedom of speech. We can say pretty much whatever we want and not go to jail. People can talk bad about the president and they're not going to jail just because they say, "I don't like the president." They have freedom of the press. You see a lot of times when you're at the grocery store and you've got crazy things up on the thing like, "Oh, Michael Jackson's still alive." The press is wrong. They're not telling the truth, but they can write whatever they want and they're not going to jail for it. So we have freedom of the press. We have lots of things that are making our country free compared to others. And the home of the brave. Who's our brave people? It's our soldiers that died for us. So when we stand up and we either do the Pledge of Allegiance or we say the national anthem, we're standing to honor those soldiers that have died for us. And so when we sing this, I expect everybody to always be very respectful to the song. Now Francis Scott Key wrote 4 verses actually, and the third verse is not used because it's so dark and gloomy. But there are 4 verses in total, and so you'll be able to see what some of these other words are. And I'm not going to go through all the vocabulary in these, but I'm going to let you hear the verses that he wrote. So he wrote, "On the shore dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes. What is that which the breeze over the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, half conceals, half discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected now shines in the stream. 'Tis the Star Spangled Banner, oh long may it wave, over the land of the free and the home of the brave." So that's verse 2. Here's verse 4, because verse 3 is not used. "Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand, because between their love's home and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, and God is our trust." And you see that on money a lot. "And the Star Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And then this is the actual envelope that Francis Scott Key wrote on. He had this envelope in his pocket, and he took it out and he wrote down all the things that he saw. And you can see where he crossed out some words because he changed his mind. But you can see that it says, "Oh, say, can you see through?" And then he crossed it out and wrote, "By the dawn's early light." So he wrote this poem on the back of an envelope. Why? Because he was on a boat. He had nothing else to write it on. Down here we have a map. And this is exactly where the fort is because that's the star shape of the fort. And this is right at the Patapsco River where all the boats could come in and they couldn't get up through because that fort was blocking all the boats to go up the streams any further. And that's Baltimore, so it was protecting Baltimore also. Over here we have a picture of Francis Scott Key, kind of George Washington-ish looking with the hair pulled back and the white fluffy collar, but that's back in the 1800s. Also something we want to write down in our notes is this is the War of 1812, and he wrote this in 1814. So let's write down up here where we wrote that he wrote the words. We're going to put a little dash and write in 1814 during the War of 1812. See, when I was a kid, I thought the War of 1812 was just 1 year. Why would they call it the War of 1812 if it was longer than that? But it continued to go on, and that's why he wrote it in 1814, because that war was still going on. So that's when he wrote it. Now we have pictures of when my husband and me went to Fort McHenry to see the fort. And in the beginning, we have a picture of the river, the Patapsco River, where all the boats were during this battle. Next, we took pictures of how big this flag actually was. And if you look really close at the buildings underneath it compared to the flag, it was really, really big. It's a huge flag. Next, we have a picture of Mrs. Radford here at the cannon. And they had these cannons kind of like on a railroad track thing so that you could have it on a wheel and you could turn it one way and shoot at the ships, and you could turn it the other way and shoot at the other ships. So it would move back and forth. Here's a picture of the cannonballs. This is Mr. Radford. And if you notice how big these cannonballs were next to him, they were so big and so heavy that when they would shoot them off, they were barely able to reach the other enemy ships because they were so heavy. They wouldn't go so far. Next, you can see that everything is covered in grass. And so this looks like a grassy hill, but this is actually a building, and there's a doorway there, and they stored all their cannonballs in there, and maybe they even stored some food in there so that it would keep it cool. So this was a great storage place, and it was concealed and hidden by all the grass. Next, this is on top of the ramparts. Okay, you see that this is a huge wall. It's probably about 12 feet wide. Here we've got a brick walkway, and we've got grass, and you can see a little bit of people standing there. So if you notice how small the people are compared to how wide the wall is, why do you think the wall is so wide? If the ships are shooting cannonballs at it, it's not going to get through a wall that's that wide. Now if the wall is only 6 inches wide, it's going to bust down the wall in no time. So we've got to have a huge wall so that it might make a dent, but it's not going to kill the whole soldier fort. They could also get up there and maybe lay down on the top of the wall and shoot their guns. So this is a real planned out fort that they had. Now I took a picture of one of these signs. You go to these history places and they've got these signs everywhere. And this sign was really, really important. So I'm going to read it to you and tell you all about what it says. It says, At about 2:00 p.m. on September 13th, 1814, gunners of the Maryland militia under Captain J.H. Nicholson were waiting out the British bombardment behind this parapet. It was futile to return fire because their 24-pounder gun did not have the range to hit the enemy warships. That was that cannon that I was telling you about. So suddenly a British shell landed in their midst and exploded, knocking the heavy cannon off of his carriage, and when the smoke cleared, several men had been wounded and 2 lay dead. Considering the heavy fire, Fort McHenry withstood more than 1,500 bombs and 700 rockets. So let's write that down on our notes. So 1,500 bombs and 700 rockets. And there's only 2 guys that died, and then later on there were, I guess, another 2 guys that died. It was remarkable that casualties were not heavier. 2 other Americans died in that battle. So in total, only 4 men died. So can you imagine 1,500 bombs hitting either the school or the town? That's going to be huge. And 700 rockets, and only 4 people die? It's amazing. Okay, so this is a really good turnout to this particular battle. So they won the battle because the British were not able to take over, and eventually they won the war. Now if we look at this last page, we went inside the soldier fort, and inside the soldier fort you can see the bunk beds right here, and you can see all the clothes and their belongings lined up against the walls and on hooks and stuff. So that's pretty much what the inside of the soldier fort looked like, and that's where they could sleep and feel safe inside when they weren't out at the front line at the cannons and shooting. So this is a really exciting trip to go on. I recommend that you do it sometime when you're bored and you want to go do something for a weekend. Do that with your family. It'll be a great experience. So that's it.